£455 billion. That's the scale of the green investment the UK is lining up over the next decade. Wind, tidal, grid, the whole build-out. But here's the thing nobody really talks about. None of that happens on its own. Every project, every turbine, every clever bit of engineering, it all rests on something quieter. The ideas, the science, the people who spent years working on this stuff before anyone was watching. So we got curious and we asked a simpler question. What's actually being worked on right here in the southwest of England? So we mapped it. 10 years of research, tens of thousands of outputs. And honestly, the answer surprised us. Let's set the scene first. When people picture where the UK's green economy lives, they tend to think north. Teesside, the Humber, big industrial clusters, big offshore wind. And that's fair, but it misses something. Because the southwest, Bristol, Bath, Exeter, Plymouth and everything in between, quietly sits among the 3 largest net zero hotspots in the UK. Not a footnote, a leader. We've actually been circling this story for a while. If you've seen our films on Bristol's deep tech scene, or why its supercomputer matters more than the one in London, this is the bigger picture those were pointing at. But we wanted to go underneath the companies, underneath the headlines. We wanted the raw material, the research itself. So here's what we did, in plain terms. We pulled together 10 years of academic research coming out of the southwest, tens of thousands of papers, projects and outputs. Then we tagged every single one, by theme, by institution, by how close it is to something you could actually build a business on. The goal was simple. Stop guessing what this region is good at. Just look at the evidence. And before we tagged a thing, we made a bet. We assumed the answer would be energy, offshore wind, tidal, maybe some nuclear with Hinkley down the road. That felt obvious. We were wrong. When the data came back, energy wasn't first in terms of filtered publications. It wasn't second either. Energy came third. The single biggest strength in the southwest by a clear margin was climate data, measurement, monitoring, forecasting, the science of understanding what the climate is actually doing. Second was food, agriculture and land use, how we grow things, manage soil and use the land itself as part of the solution. And then, third, energy and the power transition. Now, when you sit with that for a second, it stops being surprising and starts making total sense. Think about where this is. Plymouth, with one of Europe's great marine research traditions. Exeter, sitting right next to the Met Office, one of the most important climate forecasting institutions on the planet. And a whole agricultural research heritage stretching across the southwest's farmland. Of course this region is a climate data powerhouse. And one place kept rising to the top. Exeter. Of all the major institutions we mapped, Exeter had the highest proportion of research that was genuinely relevant, the highest keep rate in our terms. Combined with climate data being the #1 theme, the picture's hard to miss. Exeter is the anchor, the gravity well, a regional capital for understanding the climate itself. That Met Office connection isn't a coincidence. It shows up clearly in the data. But the finding I keep coming back to is a smaller one. While we were tagging, certain themes kept appearing that didn't fit neatly into any of our boxes, the interesting strays. And one came up again and again, cooling poverty. It's a deceptively simple idea. As the world warms, staying cool stops being a comfort and becomes a question of survival. And just like heating, the people who'll struggle most to afford it are the ones with the least. It's barely funded, barely discussed, and it's being seriously studied right here in the southwest. That's the kind of thing you only ever find by casting a wide net and actually looking, instead of searching for what you already expected to find. Now, a fair question. How much of this is just papers, and how much could become something real? We looked at that too, and we were honest about it. Roughly a quarter of the climate-relevant research we mapped is what you'd call applied. The kind of work that could plausibly become a product, a patent, a company. Thousands of defensible business ideas, many of which no investor has ever laid eyes on. That £455 billion build-out we started with, it needs a pipeline of ideas to draw on. The Southwest is quietly sitting on one. Want to explore further? Every theme, every institution, the applied work pulled out and made searchable so founders, investors and researchers can actually see what's here, then join our waiting list in the description.